Jack Lemmon overheard a broke couple's wedding plans. What he did next left everyone speechless. Jack Lemmon was halfway through his coffee when he heard the words, "We can't afford it." He looked up. At the table next to him, a young couple sat hunched over a stack of papers, their voices low but desperate. The woman was crying. The man held her hand, his jaw tight. Jack Lemmon didn't know these people, but in the next 48 hours, he would change their lives in ways that nobody, least of all the couple themselves, could have imagined. To understand what happened that March morning in 1978, you need to understand who Jack Lemmon was. Not the movie star version that people saw on screen, the real Jack Lemmon, the one who grew up watching his parents struggle during the Depression, the one who never forgot what it felt like to count pennies, the one who, despite 2 Oscars and a mansion in Beverly Hills, still drove himself to a neighborhood diner in Westwood every Sunday morning because he liked their coffee and nobody bothered him there. Jack had money, lots of it, but he remembered not having any, and that memory never left him. March 12, 1978, 947 Ann, Mel's Diner on Westwood Boulevard. Jack sat in his usual booth in the back corner, reading the Los Angeles Times sports section. The Lakers had lost to the Celtics the night before. Jack was annoyed about it. He was so focused on being annoyed that at first he didn't notice the couple at the next table. Then he heard crying. Jack glanced over. The young woman had her face in her hands. The young man across from her was holding a stack of papers, and he looked like had been punched in the stomach. Between them on the table was what looked like a small war room of wedding planning. Brochures, price lists, crossed-out budgets, vendor contracts. Jack tried to go back to his paper. This wasn't his business. People had problems. That was life. But then he heard the man speak. Tom told Lisa to please not cry, that they would figure something out. Lisa looked up, her mascara running. She asked how they were going to figure it out. They had cut everything they could cut. No flowers except her bouquet. No band, no music, no sit-down dinner, just appetizers. They were down to 30 guests, and they still couldn't afford it. Tom rubbed his face. He looked exhausted. He acknowledged that losing his job couldn't have come at a worse time. Lisa grabbed his hand and insisted it wasn't his fault. None of this was his fault. But the wedding was in 8 weeks. 8 weeks. And they had. She looked at a piece of paper. $430. Jack's eyes stayed on his newspaper, but he wasn't reading anymore. Tom quietly suggested they could postpone again. Lisa's voice was firm despite the tears. No, they had postponed twice already. Once for Tom's mother's surgery, once when Lisa lost her job last year. She wasn't postponing again. Her parents had been so excited. Her mom had bought a dress 6 months ago. She had been calling every day asking about details. If they canceled now, Tom squeezed her hand and said they weren't canceling. They were getting married on May 6th, even if it was just them and a justice of the peace at City Hall. They were doing it. Lisa nodded, wiping her eyes. She remarked that City Hall was romantic. Tom's voice softened. He told her that she was going to be his wife, and that was the only romance he needed. They sat there in silence for a moment. Then Lisa picked up one of the brochures. The Rosewood Hall had been her dream venue. She asked Tom if he remembered when they went to see it. He remembered. She had cried because it had those big windows with the garden view. Lisa laughed bitterly. $2,000 just for the space. $2,000 for 4 hours. That was more than their rent for 2 months. Tom leaned forward and told her that someday, when he was back on his feet, when they had some money saved up, they would have a big party, renew their vows or something. They would rent the fanciest place in Los Angeles, he promised. Lisa smiled weakly and said she would hold him to that. They gathered their papers and stood up to leave. As they walked past Jack's booth, he heard Lisa whisper to Tom that she just wanted one day. One perfect day where her parents could be proud, where they could look back and remember something beautiful. Jack Lemmon sat very still as they left the diner. He stared at his coffee. He thought about his own wedding to his second wife, Felicia, back in 1962. He thought about how lucky he had been. How easy it had been. Money wasn't an object. They'd had everything they wanted. This couple had nothing except each other. Jack put down his newspaper. He stood up and walked to the counter where Mel, the owner, was wiping down the coffee machine. Jack asked Mel if that couple that just left were regulars. Mel looked up. Tom and Lisa. Yeah, they came in most Sundays after church. Nice kids. He asked why Jack wanted to know. Jack asked if they had money troubles. Mel's expression darkened. Tom had lost his job about a month ago. Manufacturing plant closed down. He had something lined up, started in a couple weeks. But yeah, they were struggling. Mel asked why Jack was asking. Jack pulled out his wallet and asked how much their usual bill was. About $12. Coffee and pancakes usually. Jack put a $100 bill on the counter. That would cover them for the next few months. He told Mel not to tell them it was from him. Just tell them their breakfasts were taken care of. Mel stared at the bill. He started to say that Jack didn't have to do that, Jack interrupted. He knew he didn't have to, he wanted to, and one more thing. Had they said anything else about this wedding? May 6th at some church on Pico. Mel had heard Lisa mention it. He asked why. Jack didn't answer. He just smiled, thanked Mel, and left. What Jack Lemmon did over the next 48 hours would become the kind of story people told for decades. But it started simply. When he got home that Sunday afternoon, he made 3 phone calls. The first was to his assistant, a woman named Dorothy Chen, who had worked for him for 12 years. Jack told her he needed her to track down some information for him. Young couple, first names Tom and Lisa, getting married May 6th at a church on Pico Boulevard. He needed their full names, address, phone number. He asked if she could do that. Dorothy, used to Jack's occasional odd requests, simply said she would have it by tomorrow morning. The second call was to Herman Rush, his business manager. Jack told Herman he needed about $15,000 in cash. Could Herman get that together by Tuesday? Herman paused. He asked if Jack was in some kind of trouble. No trouble. Jack just needed Herman to trust him. Herman started to say that $15,000 in cash was unusual, but Jack cut him off. Herman relented. He would have it ready. The third call was to an old friend, Father Thomas Mackenzie, a Catholic priest who'd officiated at several Hollywood weddings. Jack told him he needed a favor. By Monday afternoon, Dorothy had the information. Tom Brennan and Lisa Morrison. They lived in a small apartment in Culver City. Tom had worked at Hartley Manufacturing before it closed. Lisa was a part-time secretary at a dental office. The wedding was scheduled for May 6th at St. Augustine's Church on Pico, followed by a small reception at the church hall. They had booked Father Mackenzie. Small world. Jack called Father Mackenzie back. He told the priest that the couple getting married on May 6th, the Brennans, he wanted to take care of some things, but he needed Father Mackenzie to not tell them it was him. Not yet. Father Mackenzie asked what Jack was planning. Something good, Jack hoped. Over the next 3 weeks, mysterious things started happening to Tom and Lisa Brennan. On March 20th, Lisa received a call from the Rosewood Hall. There had been a cancellation for May 6th. The venue was available, and due to the last-minute opening, they could offer it for just $500. Lisa, shocked, immediately said yes. She and Tom scraped together the money. On April 3rd, a catering company called Tom. They had extra staff and food available for May 6th and could do a full sit-down dinner for 30 guests for $600, far below their normal rate. Tom, suspicious but desperate, agreed. On April 15th, a wedding photographer called. Same story, cancellation, discount, available. Then a florist, then a string quartet. Lisa was beside herself with joy, calling it a miracle. Tom was suspicious but didn't want to ruin her happiness. He told his brother over beers one night that maybe they were just getting lucky. Maybe God was looking out for them. What they didn't know was that Jack Lemmon had paid full price for everything. The Rosewood Hall's manager got a call from Jack's assistant offering $5,000 to have a cancellation on May 6th. The caterer got $3,000. The photographer, florist, musicians, all of it arranged and paid for by Jack Lemmon, a man Tom and Lisa had never met. But Jack wasn't done. On April 28th, 8 days before the wedding, Tom came home from his new job at Peterson Electronics to find an envelope taped to their apartment door. Inside was a note typed on plain paper. Every couple deserves a perfect day. Congratulations on your marriage. With the note was a check for $2,000. Tom and Lisa stared at it in their tiny kitchen. Lisa whispered that this had to be a mistake. This had to be for someone else. Tom examined the check. It had their names on it. It was from a law office downtown, but there was no return address, no phone number. Lisa said they couldn't cash it. What if it was a scam? Tom sat down at their small kitchen table. He asked what if it was real? What if someone was really trying to help them? They debated for 2 days. Finally, they went to the bank. The check cleared. $2,000 appeared in their account. They paid off their credit cards, bought Lisa a new wedding dress, and put the rest toward their honeymoon. Lisa said the night before the wedding that she didn't understand what was happening, but she wasn't going to question it anymore. They were getting their perfect day. Tom, somehow, they were getting their perfect day. May 6, 1978, the wedding was at 2 p.m. At 145, Tom was in the church's back room with his brother, his best man, adjusting his tie for the 100th time. His brother asked if he was nervous. Terrified, Tom admitted. Not about marrying Lisa, about everything else. All this, he gestured vaguely. It was too perfect. Something was going to go wrong. His brother assured him nothing was going to go wrong. At exactly 1:50 p.m., there was a knock on the door. Tom's brother opened it. Standing there was a man in an expensive suit, smiling warmly. It took Tom a moment to register who he was looking at. Jack Lemmon. Tom's brother made a sound like a strangled cat. Tom just stared. Jack introduced himself and said he knew this was was unusual, but he was hoping he could attend the wedding, if that was okay with them. Tom couldn't form words. His mouth opened and closed like a fish. Jack continued. He should probably explain. About 3 months ago, he had overheard Tom and Lisa at Mel's diner. They were trying to figure out their wedding budget, and he wanted to help, so he did. The venue, the catering, the photographer, all of it. That was him. The check too. Tom finally found his voice. He asked what Jack meant. Why had he done this? Jack said simply that they reminded him of his parents, because he had been lucky in his life and he wanted to share some of that luck. And because that morning, Lisa said something that stuck with him. She said she just wanted one perfect day. He thought he could help with that. Tom sat down heavily on a chair. He asked if this whole time, everything, that was Jack. That was him, Jack confirmed. Tom asked why Jack hadn't told them. Jack smiled, because if he had told them, they would have said no. They would have been too proud, too embarrassed. This way, they could just enjoy their day. Although, he paused, he was crashing their wedding now, so maybe he hadn't thought this through. Tom started laughing. It was the kind of laugh that comes from relief and disbelief and pure joy all mixed together. He couldn't believe it. Jack Lemmon and Jack had been planning his wedding. Jack clarified that technically, Tom and Lisa had planned it. He just paid for it. Tom asked if Lisa knew yet. Not yet, Jack said. He thought maybe Tom would want to tell her. Or Jack could, if Tom preferred. Tom stood up. He walked over to Jack Lemmon and hugged him. Jack, surprised, hugged him back. Tom thanked him, his voice breaking. He didn't know what to say, just thank you. The ceremony was beautiful. Lisa cried when she saw the flowers, the venue, everything exactly as she had dreamed. She didn't know yet why Tom kept looking at her with such an odd expression, or why his eyes kept drifting to someone sitting in the back row. Jack Lemmon sat in the last pew, watching. A few other guests noticed him and whispered, but nobody approached. This wasn't his day. This was Tom and Lisa's day. After the ceremony, during the reception, Tom pulled Lisa aside and told her everything. She didn't believe him at first. Then she saw Jack Lemmon standing by the dessert table, and she started crying all over again, ruining her makeup for the second time that day. Lisa walked up to Jack and, without a word, hugged him. She whispered her thanks. Jack told her she was very welcome and congratulated Mrs. Brennan. What happened next was the part that nobody expected. Not Tom, not Lisa, and certainly not Jack. At 6 p.m., as the reception was winding down, Tom clinked his glass for attention. The room went quiet. Tom said he knew this wasn't traditional, but there was someone there he needed to acknowledge. Someone who made this day possible. Lisa stood next to him, holding his hand. Tom continued. 3 months ago, Lisa and he were at a diner trying to figure out how to pay for a wedding they couldn't afford. They thought they would have to cancel everything, disappoint their families, give up on the day they had been dreaming about. But someone overheard them, someone they had never met, and that someone decided to help them. The room was completely silent now. Tom looked at the back of the room and asked Jack Lemmon to come up. Jack, who had been trying to remain invisible, hesitated. Then he walked to the front. The room erupted in whispers and gasps. Tom turned to face Jack. He said he didn't know why Jack did what he did. He didn't know why Jack chose them. But Jack gave them more than a wedding. He gave them hope. He showed them that there were still good people in this world. And Tom wanted everyone there to know what Jack did. Jack, uncomfortable with the attention, smiled and said this wasn't necessary. Tom's voice was firm. Yes, it was, because people needed to know. In a world where it felt like everyone was looking out for themselves, Jack looked out for strangers. He didn't have to. He didn't get anything out of it. He just did it because it was right. Lisa stepped forward and asked Jack if she could say something. Of course, Jack replied. Lisa told him that her whole life, she had watched his movies with her family. Her dad loved Some Like It Hot. Her mom cried during the apartment. But after today, when she thought of Jack, she wasn't going to think of those movies. She was going to think of this moment, this day. And she was going to tell her kids someday that Jack Lemmon came to her wedding. Not because he was famous, but because he was kind. The room applauded. Jack, genuinely moved, nodded his thanks. But he wasn't done. Because Jack Lemmon, who had spent his career playing characters who said the right thing at the right time, was about to say something that would change Tom and Lisa's lives one more time. Jack turned to address the room. He thanked everyone and said he wanted to say something if they would indulge him. The room quieted again. Jack began by saying he had known Tom and Lisa for about 8 weeks now. The lie came easily, naturally, and in that time, he had watched them navigate some of the hardest circumstances a young couple can face. Job loss, financial pressure, the stress of planning a future when the present feels impossible. But you know what he had never seen them do? He had never seen them give up. He had never seen them turn on each other. He had never seen them lose sight of what matters. Tom and Lisa looked at each other, confused but touched. Jack continued, his actor's voice filling the room with warmth and authority. When Tom lost his job at Hartley Manufacturing, he could have fallen apart. Instead, he went out and found new work within weeks. He took care of his family. He kept kept his promises. That takes character. Tom was starting to tear up. Jack turned to Lisa. And Lisa, he said. She had been working part-time, taking care of her future husband, planning this wedding, and from what he understood, volunteering at her church every Thursday night. She gave everything she had to everyone around her. That wasn't just kindness. That was strength. Lisa was crying now. Jack told everyone that he wanted them to understand something. This couple right here, they were going to be just fine. More than fine. They were going to be extraordinary, because they had something that no amount of money can buy. They had integrity, they had love, and they had each other. Those three things would take them further than any career, any fortune, any success Hollywood could ever offer. Trust me, Jack said. I know. The room was silent except for the sound of people crying. Jack concluded by saying that yes, he helped with the wedding, but Tom and Lisa, they helped him too. They reminded him what really matters, and for that, he was grateful. So let's raise a glass to Tom and Lisa Brennan. May your marriage be long, your struggles be few, and may you never forget that you deserve every good thing that comes your way. Cheers. The room erupted in applause and cheers. Tom and Lisa, completely overwhelmed, hugged each other and then hugged Jack. What Tom and Lisa didn't know was that there were 3 reporters in that room. One was a friend of Father Mackenzie, who had heard Jack Lemmon was attending and brought his camera. Another was a cousin of Tom's who worked for the Culver City News. The third was there by pure coincidence, covering a different story, and had wandered into the reception. By Monday morning, the story was everywhere. Jack Lemmon's secret wedding gift, the Los Angeles Times headline read, "Hollywood star pays for struggling couple's dream wedding," said the Hollywood Reporter. The story was picked up nationally by Tuesday. By Wednesday, Tom and Lisa Brennan were being interviewed on Good Morning America. The attention was overwhelming, but it came with something else: opportunities. On May 15th, Tom got a call at his new job at Peterson Electronics. It was the CEO of Hartley Manufacturing's parent company. They had seen the news coverage. They were reopening a smaller facility and wanted Tom to come back as a production supervisor, with better pay and benefits. Tom accepted. On May 20th, Lisa received a letter from the law firm that had sent the mysterious check. Inside was a job offer. They needed an office manager. The salary was triple what she had been making. She started the following Monday. On June 3rd, Tom and Lisa received a call from a wedding magazine. They wanted to feature their story. They would pay $5,000 for the rights. Tom and Lisa used that money as a down payment on a small house in Torrance. Over the next year, more good things happened. Tom got promoted twice. Lisa discovered she had a talent for legal work and started taking night classes. By 1980, she was a paralegal. By 1983, Tom was running his own small manufacturing business. By 1985, they had 2 kids and a comfortable life in the suburbs. They never forgot what Jack Lemmon did. Every year on May 6th, their anniversary, they would raise a glass and toast him. And every year, they would write him a letter thanking him. Jack kept every single letter. He had them in a folder in his office labeled simply Tom and Lisa. In 1995, 17 years after the wedding, Jack received a phone call. It was Tom. Tom said he was calling because, well, Lisa and he wanted to invite Jack to something. Their daughter was graduating from UCLA next month. She was getting a degree in social work. She wanted to help people, and she said it was because of what Jack did for them. They would love it if he could come. Jack went. He sat in the audience with Tom and Lisa, now in their 40s, successful and happy. Their daughter, Jennifer, gave a speech about service and kindness. She mentioned that her parents had taught her that the greatest thing you can do in life is help someone who can't help themselves. After the ceremony, Jennifer came up to Jack. She asked if he was the one, the guy from the wedding story her parents always told. Jack supposed he was. Jennifer told him that story was why she did what she did. It was why she believed in people. "Thank you," she said. Years passed. Tom and Lisa's life continued to flourish. Their daughter Jennifer graduated from UCLA. They bought a bigger house. Tom's business grew. Lisa became a successful paralegal, then went to law school at night, eventually becoming a lawyer herself. But they never forgot. They couldn't forget. How could you forget the day a stranger changed your life? In 1982, 4 years after the wedding, Lisa called Tom at work. Her voice was shaking. She told him she was pregnant. Tom dropped the phone, then picked it up. He asked if she was serious. She was serious. They were having a baby. That night, they sat in their living room, holding hands, talking about names. Lisa had a list: Emma, Sarah, Michael, David. Tom listened to all of them and nodded. Then he asked, "What about Jack?" Lisa looked at him. "What if it's a girl? Then they would save it for the next one." Lisa smiled. She knew exactly what he meant. He wanted to name their child after him. "Don't you?" Tom asked. Lisa thought about it. About that day in the diner when they had nothing. About the wedding that shouldn't have happened. About the speech Jack gave that changed their lives. About the man who saw them when they were invisible. Yes, she said. If it was a boy, they would name him Jack. It was a boy. Jack Thomas Brennan was born on February 14, 1983. When Lisa held him for the first time, she cried. Tom called Jack Lemmon from the hospital. Tom identified himself and told Jack that Lisa just had a baby. A boy. Jack congratulated them. That was wonderful. Tom said they named him Jack. After him, they wanted Jack to know. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then Jack's voice came back, quieter than before, thick with emotion. He told Tom they didn't have to do that. Tom said they knew they didn't have to. They wanted to. Jack gave them everything. Their wedding, their start, their hope. The least they could do was make sure his name lived on in their family. Another silence. Then Jack said he was honored, truly honored. Tom should tell Lisa congratulations from him. And tell little Jack that he had a good name to live up to. Tom said they would. And he thanked Jack, again, always. The story of Jack Lemmon and the wedding became one of those Hollywood legends that people tell when they want to remember that movie stars are human beings too. But for Tom and Lisa Brennan, it wasn't a legend. It was their life. They're in their 70s now, retired, living in that same house in Torrance. Their daughter Jennifer runs a nonprofit that helps struggling families. Their son Jack is a teacher, working with underprivileged kids in Los Angeles. Both of them tell their own kids the story of how Grandma and Grandpa met the man they named Uncle Jack after. And every May 6th, the whole Brennan family gathers for dinner. They raise a glass to Jack Lemmon. And they remember that sometimes, the most extraordinary things come from the simplest gestures. A man overhears a conversation. He decides to help. And 40 years later, lives are still better because of it. That's the real story of what Jack Lemmon did. Not just a generous act, but a reminder that we all have the power to change someone's life. We just have to choose to do it. Jack Lemmon chose. And the Brennans chose to honor that choice every day after. That's what left everyone speechless. Not just that Jack Lemmon paid for a wedding, but that he started something that never stopped. A ripple that turned into a wave. And it all started with a cup of coffee and 2 words. We can't afford it. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to hear more incredible true stories about the humanity behind Hollywood's biggest stars. Because sometimes, the most powerful performances happen off-screen.